drop is a go. They're really going to let us hunt subs? Well, we are in the hunt.
Incoming! We need to dive now. Prepare to dive.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2022 war thriller Operation Seawolf, a film that is written and directed by Stephen Luke, and it stars Dolph Lundgren, Frank Grillo and Hiram A. Murray. Now the film is set during the end of the Second World War, and Dolph Lundgren plays a character called Captain Hans Kessler, who's like a famed German naval officer who's lost everything, basically, his family, in like some sort of attack. He's then set the task by his superiors to take a small fleet of German naval vessels with the aim of doing like a missile strike on in America, New York, I believe it is. So we follow him and his crew as they set off on this impossible task. Do they manage to get this missile strike off? Well, you'll have to watch the film to find out. Right, what are my thoughts on Operation Seawolf? Well, low-budget horror films are really quite popular these days. I review quite a lot of them on the channel. Some of them are decent enough and some of them are fairly poor. And unfortunately, this is a difficult one to recommend for a number of reasons, really. While I think the production values here for a low-budget film are actually pretty good. The effects for the ships and the planes and the gunfights and all that kind of stuff and the battles are okay. Not that you get many of them. And the performances by the majority of the cast are of a good standard for a film of this budget. Beyond that, though, what we're actually left with here is a pretty dull movie. And there's quite a few reasons for that. There's no sense of tension. Now, whenever you watch like a naval war film, the Das Boot and Hunt for Red Octobers and all this kind of stuff, they're experts at building tension. It's a really good way of doing it. They copied, like in Star Trek 2, for example, they copied like naval battles, but to put it in space, because they can be really tense affairs, because they're like quite slow battles. So you've got to be very tactical, and you've got to strike and all this kind of stuff. And they can really transfer well to films, naval battles, and that's been proven many, many times. Unfortunately, that's not the case here. The naval battles that we are presented with in this film are dull by comparison, and there is zero tension. I didn't feel any tension, really. At times, I wasn't even sure who was firing at who, and and who was hit, who was sunk, what happened there. And another major problem with this film is you don't give a monkeys about any of these characters, whether it be the Americans or the Germans. Now, this film, I think, had an opportunity to present a film that blurred the lines between, who's good, who's bad, who's right, who's wrong. Because you've got this captain played by Dolph Lundgren, Captain Hans Kessler, who, as I mentioned, has lost everything. His family, his wife and kids in some kind of battle. They were killed. So you could understand he's got this real burning vengeance to take revenge out on the Americans. So he'd be really up for doing this strike, almost like a kamikaze mission. You never get that impression from Dolph and his performance, or the way this story is presented. It's almost like a side note, the fact that he lost his family. It's not presented, and it's not given as a compelling reason for him to want to go through with this attack. And you could almost then get behind him to some degree. I don't mean get behind the Nazis and the Germans, but understand his reasons for doing what he's doing. And you never get it in it. It's never presented particularly well in this film, which I thought was a shame. So you end up these Germans on this mission that you don't want to succeed because, the German, and then you presented on the other side these Americans who barely get any screen time. I couldn't even tell you their name. Hiram A. Murray's character is some captain on a ship, but I have no idea what his name was. Didn't meet hardly any of his crew, so you didn't care about that crew or the Americans. And Frank Grillo, really, we're here again with Frank Grillo taking films he shouldn't be taking. He basically plays a commander back at the base of operations, and the only time you think Frank Grillo is dishing out orders in a room or looking at a map or staring out a window, he probably filmed it over a day or two, tops, his scenes. And again, I question, what are you doing, Frank Grillo? It doesn't give a bad performance. It's just an odd thing to see him in this film because he shouldn't be in the film. And it's a pointless role that anybody could have done. It's just a reason to put his face on a poster. And again, why do that to your career? I can understand Dolph Lundgren being in this film. He's got a far larger role than Frank Grillo, Dolph Lundgren. And there was an opportunity, as I've mentioned, to make Dolph Lundgren's character really layered and complex and interesting, and they just don't do it. So it's pretty dull, really, this one, and you've got absolutely zero investment in any of the characters or any of the crews involved, and it's a naval war film with really dull naval battles that don't really add anything to this film. So it's a film, unless you're really hard, a real fan of war films, regardless of the budget, then there might be something here for you to enjoy. For me, I really struggled with this one because I found it dull. The pacing wasn't very good. I didn't enjoy the naval battles, and I wasn't interested in any of the characters because they just weren't presented particularly well. So I do think this was a huge missed opportunity. I think they could have made it a bit more complex, like blurred the lines between good and bad, but they missed that opportunity. So what we get is a below average war film, which is why I've given it a 4 out of 10. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this review. I will, of course, be back with loads more content on the channel very, very soon.